Okay. Hello, Shannon. Welcome to our interview. Thank you so much for your time and availability. And let's start. Tell us a little bit about you. Who are you and your relationship with education?
My name is Shannon. I'm American. I've been living in Lisbon for the last 7 years, and started with a partner, Carlos, who is Portuguese, Wagon here 5 years ago. So my relationship with education, really, I got into formally working in education with Wagon. But yeah, I think I've just always been, I see myself as a lifelong learner, and I really enjoy bringing skills to people that, can bring them to the next level, can help them, it sounds really cheesy, but help them achieve their dreams. So, 6 years ago, I started working in tech and startups, and I myself really felt like I wanted to learn how to code, and not even to be a programmer, just to have that knowledge. And at the time, there only existed Academia de Código, only in Portuguese and only for unemployed. And so I just saw this lack in the market, and that's how Wagon started in Lisbon 5 years ago.
And to that point, what is Wagon? What exactly do you do?
Yeah, so we're a coding bootcamp. I think by now, most people have heard of coding bootcamps. We bring technical skills to creatives and professionals. So our first program that we launched and has been running since 2013 it's in web development. So we teach adults how to code on the back end, so programming the actual applications, and then also on the front end, so designing the visual aspects of the application. And we do this for complete beginners. And so that's been our capstone program. And this year, and probably we're going to get to that, but I'll just say it now, we launched our data science program that's a little bit more advanced. So it's not just for beginners. And yeah, anyway, it's a really exciting field that's having a growing demand. And yeah, we're excited to be working in it now.
In terms of what you were saying, right? So the back end is more how the system works, right? The infrastructure, and the front end, what it's called, maybe design, UX, UI, right? Do you do different courses, or how do you treat in your classes?
Yeah, so we have different modules within our program. So we have, for both data science and web development, we have a part-time and a full-time program. The full-time being 9 weeks and the part-time being 24 weeks, so 6 months with some holidays, so it can go a little bit longer. And, throughout those, we'll work with full-time right now. Throughout those 9 weeks, you have different modules, and modules can be anywhere from 4 days to 2 weeks, depending on what the technology or skill is you're learning.
So you do it as a building block. I guess that takes
exactly
to the next question. So how, in terms of education design, this is designed like that. So you do small modules that you build upon, yes?
Exactly. So in the web development bootcamp, there's some bootcamps that start out teaching some of the softer skills, but we really get in there and we go straight to the meat and bones of what it means to program. And so we're teaching the fundamentals of code. And that's the first 3 weeks, which are really intense. So the basics of coding, and then learning about object-oriented programming, and then going into actually how to structure your applications. So it's frankly, a lot of what we teach, Wagon has a style of basically introducing the skill in its rawest, in its most raw form. And then usually these days with technologies, there's a tool that can do that for you. So for instance, we tell our students by week 3 that they have to build an application from scratch. And then which they already know, but by week 7, they're actually going to be using a framework. So they'll never have to build an application from scratch. But we want them to understand, what's going on behind that framework.
And how that's why so in terms of the teaching content, do you have teachers? Do you have a platform with online classes? How does it work?
we got it all.
No?
So yeah, this year, no, we have teachers and we have a platform. And thank goodness, you know, this platform, we were in person up until this year. And now most of our campuses around the world are running a hybrid format, meaning if students want to be in person, they can, but if they want to be working from home remotely, they also have that option, which is interesting, you know, for us this year. But we have this pretty extensive learning platform where all of the lectures are recorded on there. We also give live lectures via Zoom, but we have recorded lectures in, I think, French, in English, in Brazilian Portuguese. So we have all of these lectures on there. You have all the challenges, and the teachers are able to track the students' progress, and the students are able to use the platform, specifically in web development, to check their work. So it's kind of a self-checking mechanism. But if they
are Portuguese teachers, there are teachers here in Portugal, or it's all international?
Well, we have international teachers here, but all of our teachers are here in Portugal. That said, now that we're remote, we do kind of use the network. And so now that we have some teachers in person and some teachers remote, we'll say, oh, we have a teacher coming in from Paris today that's, you know, going to help us from Paris or London. So we have had that. We've been using that a little bit more this year since we have that flexibility.
English language, sorry to interrupt. Everything is in
yes,
English? Okay.
It is.
In terms of culture, and you were talking about soft skills, that you don't start with those. Tell us a little bit about that. So culture and the soft skills that you develop, which I guess they are connected somehow.
Yeah. Well, we do interview all of the applicants. So there is a filtering process, and we really, specifically for web development, because for data science, there are some prerequisites, like some foundation in programming and math. Regardless, like in web development also, since the prerequisites are quite low, it really is about someone's attitude. And if we feel like they have the right mindset for being a beginner again. Basically, like making sure their ego isn't too big, because it's painful to go through this learning process. I mean, we kind of say, like, if your brain isn't, you know, feeling like it's going to melt by week 2, then you're not learning. So we really it's a very intense program where a lot of the learning comes from just being out of your comfort zone and very uncomfortable. But students are able to do that because they have the support of our teachers and of their classmates. It would be I think the situation would be much more difficult on your own. It takes a very special individual to learn at this pace with this kind of intensity on their own. So I would say the culture is very positive, you can do it kind of culture. And I think sometimes, especially in the middle of the program, the students can get a little bit, you know, tired of this you can do itness, because we say just trust in the process and trust in us. Like, don't listen to that little voice in your head that's telling you you can't do this is too hard, which happens to all of us. So but then by the end it all comes together and they kind of get why we say trust in the process.
And because going on that, and remembering something you told me at some point about being outside of your comfort zone, that you're always putting your students limits. How do you do that? How is that done? Is it
especially in the full time, because the full time the students are having new material, new concepts that aren't simple, introduced to them every single day. So at the beginning of every day, there's a new lecture, and it's a totally new module, totally new idea that they haven't probably fully digested even the last 2 days of what they were doing. But what's happening is when they're working on their challenges throughout the day, which they do after the lecture with buddies and with the support of teachers, learn by doing, they are rehearsing the concepts that they learned from the days before. And if it's getting a little bit too easy, Wagon likes to put in there some new ideas that they haven't yet learned, so they have to go and try to figure those out on their own. But a lot of that is because, if you want to go into development, if you really want to do anything in this world, you're not going to know everything. You never do. Especially with technology, the more you know, the less you know. And so it's really getting our students comfortable with this idea of not having all the answers and looking for answers on their own too. yeah, learning how to learn is
And
a big part of it.
And in terms of that, I remember you mentioning also a junior and a senior developer. Like there is a big...
Oh yeah, you have a good memory. Yeah, no, I think, but this is one of our teachers who's a senior developer, after he's been teaching with us for 3 years, and he was like, now I know the difference between a junior and a senior developer. A senior developer, when they hit a bug or they don't understand something, they're calm. They're like, okay, I'll figure it out, even if it takes 2 or 3 days. So they're stuck on that bug. But a junior developer or a bootcamp student tends to have like an existential crisis where they question their whole life and what they're doing, and they question their abilities, and they probably have some very terrible self-talk, and it's traumatic. And so I think part of being and working in development or working in technology is also becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable, and not getting, and trusting in yourself, that you can figure it out. And also, of course, having those abilities to problem solve, which take experience, but it's just constant problem solving.
That's very interesting, because you think, okay, you are always putting them in this situation, and you think, okay, by encountering this situation, maybe you're going to be more used to it, but then you also need the attitude, right? So a different attitude.
It's so much about attitude. I've always been, maybe it's the American, I'm always big on, an positive attitude, but this has taught me even more that it really comes down to our attitude on how far we take.
So I would ask you a bit related, when you are recruiting, how is the recruitment process? How do you know, you were talking about before that they need to have an attitude and eager for learning again, but how is your process, and how do you make sure that, that your pipeline has that?
Yeah, it's really like we hire admissions managers that have some social emotional intelligence. So it's really intuition. But yeah, we ask questions besides there being a bit of a technical component. So we do want to test to see if they have some basic problem solving abilities, because it is intense. And so they need to have a slight aptitude for learning to code. Doesn't mean that
code. So problem solving, is it what, coding? What
yeah, we give them a short Ruby quiz, which is the language that we teach on the back end in Wagon, and it's really basic, but it's just to see that they can pick up some information from the free track they do to get into the program. But in terms of seeing if they're a good cultural fit and they have the right attitude, we ask questions about how they've worked in teams before, if they're comfortable being uncomfortable. We kind of scare them a little bit, and make sure that they're aware how intense it is. And, I think usually we're pretty good at choosing the right candidates, but sometimes, we have some, well,
yeah. In terms of, so you recruit them, and then, because you've been doing, how long have you been in Wagon in Lisbon?
In Lisbon, we've been here 4.5 years.
4.5 years. You started because it's a French country, right?
Yes.
By your time here, what are your students that are the biggest successes? Do you think they have some different attitude? Do they gain it on the program? What has been your...
Oh, yeah. So again, it's that's why I say attitude, because first of all, we know that we have data in terms of how the students perform in the boot camp. They're literally ranked. The students don't see that, but we see the top to the bottom, how they performed. And it's funny because we usually find that ranking isn't indicative of who gets hired first. Not oftentimes not. It's I've had students, and this is especially in the beginning, where I was anxious about, where they're going to find a job. And one student in particular who wasn't even able to complete quite a few modules in the middle of the boot camp, which isn't common now. We have more support, and we have more dashboards to make sure that doesn't happen. But anyway, that happened, and he got hired within 2 weeks after Le Wagon. And he's just this guy that just goes for it, no fear. And he just applied, got a job, and now he is a mid-level developer. And don't want to give in a pretty big startup here, managing a team of developers, and he's been there 4 years. So he has a fantastic attitude.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I've seen that time and time again.
So
it's scary. I mean, you always feel like an imposter. I mentor some students from my old university, and I mentored a computer science graduate, 4 years degree in computer science, not even a 9-week boot camp. And she was telling me that she was going to apply for some like entry-level position that had nothing to do with coding because she didn't feel like she was a developer. Anyway, and we all have imposter syndrome. So it's also, getting over that and just putting yourself out there.
And Shannon, you being an American, that makes it an easy question for me. Do you think being an American and having, different cultural traits, being here in Portugal, do you see a lot of difference in our attitude? Do you think it's also cultural, or it's more about school? Like training can really change our attitude versus culture?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like many small countries, Portuguese tend to be more risk adverse, which I think is common for countries that especially after you've gone through a recession. So I do see Portuguese.
You were here.
Yeah,
Fair question. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and so I think people here, they want to take the safe road oftentimes. And for instance, when we decided we were going to launch Wagon 4.5, or this would have been 5 years ago, or more, we had a lot of Portuguese tell us that it would never work here. No one was going to do a boot camp to change careers, So I think that I just see there being more risk averse. And now that boot camps are becoming a proven model, we're having more and more Portuguese enroll. And there's more backing. Now you have the José Neves Foundation that's doing income sharing agreements for programs like Wagon. Okay, I won't talk. But yeah, no, but in terms, that being said, like if we're going to generalize a lot here, I also find Portuguese to be, but I also find Portuguese, our students, and we're commenting on this, to be some of the nicest, most easygoing people to work with too. So yeah, I think it's hard to put people in a box, but I would say here people are more risk adverse, but frankly, I think it's a smaller market, and I think it makes sense that there's more risk aversion as well.
Regarding tech, because I forgot to ask you this earlier, in terms of Ruby, because you mentioned
yes.
Why was that decision made? Why is this a technology you use? So not on the data science, that's different, but in terms of development, why was this technology chosen?
Yeah, I mean, Ruby on Rails hit its peak probably in 2016 in terms of popularity. It was never one of the top languages, right? But Ruby, and this is at Wagon, we're training people to become developers, not to become Ruby developers or JavaScript developers, because frankly, you need to be able to work in all languages. And once you know one, it's really about getting the engineering mindset down, the programmer's mindset, than it is about learning the syntax. So for instance, that one student I was telling you about with this fantastic attitude, his job 2 weeks later was in Python. It wasn't in Ruby. Because companies are really hiring for someone that has the mindset than necessarily the specific skill, or at least, they should be. And so we use Ruby because as a language, it's great for beginners to learn. They can really focus on problem solving rather than on some messy syntax. That being said, syntax being how the language is written. That being said, we do teach JavaScript as well, which is another programming language on the front end. So students walk away with 2 programming languages after the boot camp. And JavaScript is the syntax. They say JavaScript is like built in a weekend or something anyway, it's very messy. It's not well thought through, but it's popular. It's extremely popular because it's readable by the browser. And so anyway, I won't get into that, but so we teach Ruby because we feel it's a great language to teach beginners, and it's a language that's stable and isn't changing all the time. And that means that we can deliver a curriculum that's really strong with multiple iterations, and we're not having to completely change our modules every other 6 months.
And in terms of data science, this is for more advanced students, but what kind of frameworks will you be teaching? Yeah,
so we teach Python in our data science bootcamp, and then we're using, frankly, I'm not as involved in the data science curriculum, nor have I taken the boot camp. So I feel kind of like an imposter speaking about it sometimes. But then the students do go on to learn different machine learning and deep learning modules, and then at the end, they're actually working on a data science project for the last 2 weeks of the boot camp, which is really exciting. And
Yes, because this is always project-based, right? It's always in teams.
Yeah, it's always project-based. At the end, it's always in teams. They always finish in projects and teams, yeah.
But they do one-on-one, right? This is 2 people in most of the course.
So up until, for both web development and data science, up until the last 2 or 3 weeks, the students are working with different buddies, we call them buddies, every single day on challenges. And they're paired programming, and we actually rotate the students so they work with everyone in their class, which some students love, others don't love, but it's a way for them to get comfortable working with people at different levels, and just understanding again how to work with people who are either more advanced to them or not as advanced, because that's how it is when you're in the workforce.
In terms of the students, the type of students, who is usually your students? Is it people changing jobs, people that are in how does it work?
Yeah, in Portugal, it's mostly what we call switch up. So people that are wanting to change careers. The average age, at least in web development, I think in data science, it's slightly higher, is 30 years old. And I mean, we have people come from all different backgrounds, like musicians, teachers, engineers, consultants, all different backgrounds that come and want to pivot into a new role or a new field.
In terms of so this is a private course, or how does it work? So people can apply for scholarships. What is the type of tuition? Can you give us a little glimpse on that?
Yeah. So it's a private course. For the tuition is now $6,500 for the web development bootcamp. Since we launched, especially because we wanted to develop the local market, we've had a €2,000 local scholarship, just to make the course more accessible to local students. And for part-time, and stay tuned, we're probably going to be launching some special packages for unemployed professionals here in the next few weeks. But we also now are offering student financing for part-time, meaning the students can pay in installments over the 6 months rather than paying the whole course up front, which is typically how we do for the full-time. And for I think maybe I mentioned this earlier, but now we partner with the Jose Neves Foundation, where they're offering income sharing agreements. So the Jose Neves Foundation will finance up to 20% of a batch's students, and then the students only have to start paying back that tuition in installments once they get hired and once they are making above a certain amount. So yes, it's exciting. And that just launched in September.
This series is about innovation in education, and there is a lot of innovation in funding in education, which is also a very interesting occurrence these days. In terms of job and going into the job market, Shannon, do you want to talk us a little bit about that? Like, how do you anything to brag in that sense? So in terms of jobs, we have a career services week at the end of every boot camp, where the students have workshops on LinkedIn and CVs and cover letters, on technical interviews, because it is different interviewing for a technical role. Not for a job, right? You help them going after what they want.
Exactly. And then we have speed dating sessions with our hiring partners, where the students have a chance to meet with the different hiring partners. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, there are virtual sessions now with different companies, which works pretty well. So yeah, we've been doing that in a virtual format this year. And in terms of our hiring numbers from last year, for those, because not everyone that does Le Wagon wants to get hired per se. Some people actually, Not a lot in Lisbon, to be honest, but we do have a lot of students that want to go on to be freelancers or more digital nomads. But last year in 2019, we had 90% of our students that were looking for jobs hired in the first 6 months after the boot camp.
Very good.
So,
okay, good.
Yeah.
Perfect, Shannon. Thank you so much for your time. It was really interesting to find the new ways of learning in this great field of tech. So thank you so much. Great. Congratulations on your job and on all the work that you've been doing.
Thank you, Sophia.
Let's keep watching you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia, for having us on. It's thank you. We appreciate it.
Have a nice day.